Awesome. Thank you so much. I am Evan Tingley, the principal at Bradley Bourbonnais Community High School. For those of you who aren't familiar, it's about an hour south of Chicago. It is a suburban high school, about 1,950 students. Today, we're going to be primarily talking about what most would consider soft skills, but um, we've had pretty profound results from a hard data standpoint as well. We are above 93% in graduation rate. We have over 380 students who passed an AP exam of our 1,900 students and 300 students achieving dual credit. So I will tell you, I do believe the secret sauce is having educators who have a maturity about the work. And I know maybe that word would rub people the wrong way, but I didn't really know how else to name it. So I'll kind of walk through today a few things. What is it? um, and how do we teach it at BBCHS? And a lot of it is through questioning. So I got connected to a book called Question-Based Leadership by Brett Ledbetter, and I'll talk a little bit about key points there. What are the key beliefs? What tools do we use to teach them? And then how will we know when our culture is shifting? Are there ways to measure this? So first of all, the definition. Professional maturity is how we see, react, address, and handle things, how we respond to people, and our perception, and ability to make good decisions in the moment and not overreact, come down on people unnecessarily, or look at things too superficially. That is all that encompasses professional maturity. This includes how we give and receive personal and performance feedback. That last part was huge for us. We were having a really hard time with our ability, both from a leadership standpoint to give feedback and from a teacher standpoint to receive feedback. So what I want to take a second and do in the chat is when you think about the definition of professional maturity, again, write a situation or instance that has been a roadblock for you due to a lack of professional maturity with someone or a group in your organization. I'll give you about 2 minutes to ponder that. Again, asking if you don't mind, if you can share a brief situation where a lack of professional maturity has led to a roadblock for you as a leader. Yeah. Is he taking things personally, comparative mindset, um, kind of holding grudges against students or being spiteful with students, taking things personally, uh, someone having a personal reaction where they're kind of freezing when they should be giving feedback or feel like they should be giving feedback, gossiping, teachers who escalate situations with students, happens all the time. Being called out unfairly without perspective. Okay, those are great. That allows me to kind of share some things that I think can help with those specific situations. So that's outstanding. Um, cool. Let's talk through this then. So really what this is a culture shift for a lot of folks. And whenever you're trying to shift culture, we really at BBCHS, we ask, what's the problem we're trying to solve? And then we really just do a lot of like quick hitting mini lessons. So anytime we have a teacher leadership meeting or a department meeting and an administrator can pop in, we're going to lead a 5 to 10 minute, um, we call them personal growth meetings in those sessions. And I'm going to share some of those resources with you. And then over time, we survey this, and we have the 5 essential survey as well, of course. So over time, we're measuring for understanding, we're measuring for progress to see where our staff is at. And then as administrators and the leadership team, how are we living the standard? Are we being intentional about living the standard or the culture shift that we're asking from the people we're leading? So again, I want to share this resource with you. This is one of the better books I've read in the last probably 10 years. It is based around a lot of athletic examples, but it's easily transferable to leadership and being in the classroom. And I just added a quote there. The goal of self-awareness is to build a platform where people can get to know themselves better. The goal of question-based leadership is to build a platform where people can lead themselves better. So as a leadership team, one thing we've really been concentrating on is asking instead of telling, especially when we have conflict or situations that may escalate. And I can provide a quick example of this in action. I'll give it full screen. Fix this real quick. All right. So looking at hopefully everybody can see the document in front of us here. What might this look like? So one of the question-based tools that we use is, can we agree that? So we have a situation where teaching, we're shifting the PLCs. Teachers are asking to invest time into looking at student data during times where they typically would be planning. Teacher is upset by the perceived lack of planning time and brings it to your attention. So this is a real example. Shifting the PLCs, looking at student data, a teacher is really upset because they just want more time to plan. They don't necessarily think that the data is what they need to be doing during that time. So I just use this tool. Can we agree that to start the conversation? Can we agree that good teaching means that students learn more? Yes. Can we agree that we have to look at student achievement data to know what skills they've mastered? Yes. And we went from there. When you're planning lessons without considering student data, how do you know what to plan? Well, they have their curriculum, their pacing guide. As long as students are behaving well and getting good grades, I don't see a problem. How would you feel if your students were mastering less of the standards than you predicted? You can see the answer there. I would feel like a failure, pour my heart and soul into my lessons. I think this is a common response a lot of us would get from our teaching staff. Can we agree? So this is a big tool. Can we agree that teaching is what you do, not who you are? We're going to get into that. If you let go of fear of failure or judgment, do you think it would still be beneficial to know how a student was doing skill by skill? And the teacher ended up saying, like, with that knowledge, I think I would be able to plan more thoughtful interventions and enrichments. In theory, my best students I could get more out of, and my lowest students I could provide different interventions. So we got to a point where we were talking the same language, at least. Hey, measuring student data is good for planning. It's good for you as a teacher, and it's good for kids. So just a tool that we've used. There's 50 of these provided in the book. This is just one example. Can we agree that? And you'll see these sprinkled throughout the presentation today. Okay, so get into core beliefs a little bit. So this is one of the core beliefs that an activity we do with all of our new teachers, and then we do it in many of our departments. So any chance I can, I do. It's a 10-minute activity, and I'll walk you through what it looks like. And it's driving home the idea that who we are is different than what we do. Again, a lot of the comments you made were about people taking things personally and then lashing out or shutting down, which is the typical responses when you feel personally attacked. And what we really wanted to drive home is we, as a core value, believe feedback is a gift. And when people confuse feedback for what you do with feedback for who you are, they're less likely to allow that feedback to be the gift and impact student learning. So we do an activity called the Identity Insight Workshop. And it's really, really, really simple. Again, I really believe in like a 10-minute sticky mini lesson, even with adults, and let them get on with their day or whatever the meeting is about. Really simple. You take a piece of paper, you split it in half, and you have people write on one side, write who you are, and on the other side, write what you do. And you give them 2 minutes to brainstorm that. So who you are on one side, what you do on the other. And I want you to take just like 20 seconds, and you can even do it in your head. If you have paper by you, great. Write some things that you think you would put under the who you are. Write a few things you would put under the what you do. And in 30 seconds, we'll debrief it. So 30 seconds starting now. If you want to add a couple to the chat, you're certainly more than welcome, but you don't feel like you have to. Excuse me, getting over the crud that's going around right now. Okay, hopefully you've had a chance to write down a couple things. Here is what I almost always see with this activity. Who you are is almost always filled with nouns. I'm a teacher, I'm a principal, I'm an assistant principal, I'm a counselor, I'm a mom, I'm a dad, wife, husband, brother, sister, friend. What you do, again, answers vary there, but sometimes they're adjectives describing what people do. When instead, really who you are should be things that can't be taken from you, right? So all the things that are listed in red, unfortunately, at some point could change for you. But if you're looking at the adjectives, kind, caring, loving, compassionate, can you be kind, caring, loving, and compassionate and deliver a bad lesson or a lesson that doesn't teach kids skills and have to take feedback? Of course. So then on the what you do, okay, that might be where you're listing teacher, mom, dad, educator, principal, superintendent, whatever it is you are. And the way we frame this for folks is what you do, these are just like hundreds of chances a day to live out who you are. And you're going to miss the mark sometimes, right? So you're not going to be perfect. We all have days, times, situations where we look back and think, man, that did not represent who I am the way I wanted it to. And but really what this detachment, this separation does for our teaching staff specifically, it is allows us to give really direct, honest feedback on teaching practices because we've laid a foundation that we're not giving people feedback on their identity or who they are or their self-worth. We're simply giving feedback on a lesson. And that's something we talk about all the time as evaluators. Feedback on a lesson is exactly that, feedback on a lesson. There might be adjustments to practice you could do to create more engagement, different, classroom environment things you can do. And it's not a judgment of who someone is as a person. I've seen phenomenal teachers who get a 4 on every evaluation that I wouldn't necessarily be best friends with. I'm not sure that they were the best judge of character. And I've seen people who are just the most wonderful humans on the face of the earth. They lived in proficient, and that's what they did. And they received feedback, and they valued the feedback. So again, what would be the ultimate goal? What is the ultimate goal? Our ultimate goal is to serve students the best we can and to get academic outcomes for students. We need to be able to give strategic and tactical feedback without sparking emotional reactions. I think that's just, we're all craving that. And if you can set the culture where feedback is a gift, we're allowing ourselves to do that. So we say feedback is a gift almost every meeting we're in. Feedback is a gift. If somebody gives us as a leadership team feedback, or even when it's not great and something you don't really want to be reading, there's probably something to be learned from that feedback. So we say feedback is a gift all the time. We try to live it. And we say it, and again, this is just an activity we do for people to help them kind of separate their self-worth from professional feedback. And that allows for a more mature conversation. Core belief two, always maintain perspective. So oftentimes we have staff members, teachers, assistant principals, and they'll ride the wave with parents or students, right? Parents and students often come in at very high emotions, and it's sometimes hard to keep up with the conversation because you're not quite sure what's going on. I have those types of conversations with teachers too. They're on this wave. They're having a hard time getting off of it, and so we kind of just talk about this early on. And when people take actions, words, stimulus personally, they have less perspective on whatever it is the issue at hand is. So we do something called the perspective paradox reflection. And this stuff is really, really simple. It's a picture of a graph. And it just is, the more you take things personally, obviously, the less perspective you have. So we just show that as a slide. And then we talk, we just ask questions. We try to get groups of 10 to 12 teachers. Again, this could be your teacher leadership team. This could be your third grade team. This could be your social studies team. And you're just popping into a department meeting and asking for 5 to 10 minutes of time. So kick this off again, just showing the slide. And these are examples of using the question-based leadership tools. Can we agree that the more we take things personally, the less perspective we have on a situation? How do you know when this is happening? How do you prevent or regulate it? Think about a time when you've taken something personally. What can you learn from that experience? How does it feel when everyone around you is emotionally dysregulated and you're trying to resolve an issue? So I think every teacher has been in these situations, or any leader has been in these situations. And what you do is you just create space, really safe, vulnerable space for people to have these conversations. And then how much easier is it to, when you're talking to that teacher a month, 6 months from that moment, to say, hey, listen, right now, I don't think we're in a space to really have a professional conversation and keep perspective, because it feels personal. And let's take a step back and revisit this. So being able to do these mini lessons, it not only drives reflection, but it allows you to then point back. So they're quick cues. Hey, you remember that graph we looked at where the more you take things personally, the less perspective you have? Hey, do you remember how we separated who we are from what we did, and how that kind of allowed us to have an honest conversation about our performance? Let's get back to that, or how can we get back to that? So being able to just really quick reference a lot of these things I think is really, really helpful when having tricky conversations. So this is one that came up in the chat, comparison mindset. This happens all the time, not only with our staff, but with our students. Comparing yourself to others really is never a great idea, personally, professionally. There's lots of studies out there that show this. Your self-esteem almost always takes a hit. It actually stops you from growing professionally and personally instead of prompting it. Everybody has unique strengths. Everybody has a different starting point. So sometimes comparisons are unfair. Focusing on your own progress feels more controllable, and it encourages self-improvement. So those are things we talk about. Competing. We talk about a competitive maturity. Again, we're using that word, maturity. Competitive maturity happens when your people are committed to being better than they were the day before. So I'm committed today to being a better Evan Tingley than I was yesterday. I don't know all the principals on the webinar today. I don't know. I know all the principals in our county. And if I measured myself up against all of them, certainly every day I would not measure well. I mean, I would just go home depressed. I got to be me. I'm not them. I'm on my own journey. And I have to be able to take a hard look in the mirror. Okay, how was today? How can I be better tomorrow? And it's just a much healthier perspective. So again, what do we do? Really, really simple slide. The slide is just me versus me yesterday above the line, me versus you below the line. Another terminology we use all the time at BBCHS is above the line and below the line behavior. And that's simply above the line behavior is kind of what we're aiming for. That would be professional maturity. Below the line behavior are things that are problematic. So the slide is just me versus me yesterday above the line, me versus you below the line with our set of question-based tools. You agree or disagree that competition is healthier when it's against yourself? Why? Why is it easier to compare to others? When does that work against you? Why do you think most people view competition as me versus you or us versus them? What are the advantages of staying above the line? So then you just spend a little bit of time. I mean, the great part about these questions is they are going to help you as an organization, but as a leader, how much more connected are you to the 8 to 10 people that you had this conversation with the next day? I know for me, we have a staff of about 200 people. I don't know all of them personally, especially not the first 6 months of the school year, because we hire 30 to 50 new people a year. And for me just to be in spaces talking about things that matter, grappling with topics that matter, allows me to it just connects us on a deeper level. I'm never forgetting their name. I'm never forgetting their face. And it helps me identify young leaders in the room. Some people take these questions and they have a really, really sophisticated, mature outlook on these topics, and they're people you can leverage down the line. So again, another mini lesson. This is just something I would do again with a small teacher team, leadership team, carving 10 minutes out to have a critical conversation that's going to increase our culture. All right, core belief 4. This is a big one. Happens all the time in our organization. We have a lot of layers of leadership. So obviously we have the school board who hires the superintendent, and then we have our org chart of our district administrators, building administrators, and then we have our department chairs, and then our team leads with our course team. So lots of layers, lots of decision makers amongst those layers, and then lots of layers of decisions. So what would happen pretty often is if somebody above the or up the org chart would make a decision that people below the org chart didn't necessarily agree on, but then they had to communicate it to their team, they'd say, well, I don't know what they're doing, but we just got to do it because that's what Mr. Tingley said we got to do. And in essence, they're creating lots of fractures in the organization. So we talked about how do we address this we-they issue that's really fracturing our culture. And our activity is just called we-they ours, and we wrote down all the things that we make decisions on. And we cut them up into little strips. So each line would be a small strip of paper. So you cut out universal student outcomes into one strip of paper, cut out quality and performance of staff. So we cut out all those, we put them in an envelope, and we took all of our leaders from the team leads of our teachers. So like our Algebra 1 course team lead, all the way through to our superintendent of schools. And then you take these little word strips and you put them in the category you think they belong. Is this your responsibility? Is this my responsibility? Or is this our collective responsibility? And, the point of the activity, it's a trick activity, right? So almost if not every time, all of the strips end up on ours. They're all of ours. And so it drives home the idea that when a decision is made as a leadership team, it is our decision collectively. And that might take some reframing, and that might take some seeking for rationale or more information to really buy in or be able to thoroughly explain a decision. But at the end of the day, it does no good. A decision that's been made, it doesn't do any good to throw someone under the bus for a decision you don't think is popular. And it doesn't enhance leadership at all. So we were dealing with that a lot. This was a really helpful activity with our teams. We did it in groups of 5 or 6. And then we showed examples in the overt, those are less frequent, really obvious. That was so-and-so. You'll have to ask so-and-so about it. I have nothing to do with it. I totally agree with you. They really screwed that one up. Ask them about it in the meeting. I don't know. See how they react. Like those are the overt, like, I'm just totally disengaging with this decision. I'm not a part of it, so don't come to me with anything. Way more often, and what we were struggling with is a lot of subtle we they. Oh wow, I didn't know anything about that, and forwarding the email back to somebody. I'll pass that feedback along when easily the person could have addressed the concern or answered the concern. Um, Someone should have done something differently. I don't know. I wasn't a part of that decision. I'll find out. I'll kick that to the leadership team. I'm not a part of that decision. I advocated for you, but it didn't work out. Right now, I know I need to advocate for my staff. So there are times when for advocating for staff for sure, and in front of them when a decision is in flux probably isn't the best time. So understanding that some of those subtle we they are necessary at times behind closed doors. I'm more talking about when it's very public display of this isn't, I had nothing to do with this. Don't kill the messenger, right? So, and then we give just a really brief training. This isn't all of it, but using we language, articulate what is being done to correct things. Please share information that you have. Oftentimes that doesn't happen. Focusing on moving forward. How can we move forward collectively? So easy roadmap for this. What is it that's driving you crazy? What are the things that in your organization is chipping away at your culture? You can do these mini lessons on any topic you want. All right. So I just shared a few of the things that we were experiencing as a team that were roadblocks for us that we thought were big ticket. And then I would share this with our leadership team first, and then our leadership team would go into our teacher teams and they could execute these mini lessons with a lot of success. Um, so how are we how do you want to shift culture? What are you intentionally doing? It doesn't have to be, in fact, oftentimes all staff is not a great strategy. I think attacking in these pockets, same message, many messengers, and having real conversations allows them to see you as a real person, as a leader, but also gets to the root of the problem. How will you know when this has shifted? I'll show you how I've measured some of this. And then as a leader, um, how can you hold each other in loving accountability for living this standard that you've just addressed? So again, our strategies were these personal growth meetings. So that's what we called these little mini lessons. We probably ended up with 25 to 30 of them that aligned with our standards of practice, which I'll show you. And we had results. We measured this both through survey. We had hard data and soft data. We did do a specific training on this. It's called What Drives Winning Professional Development. And I measured it in 21, 22. We had 43 participants. Survey results, so some soft data results, 95% of teachers believe that this would actually improve their student achievement. 92% of teachers agree that it improved their classroom management. 92% of teachers agreed that it increased their ability to lead other adults. 71% said it decreased their burnout. And the best part about it, we had for a while there during COVID, we had a staff turnover issue. And I mean, I know that's happening a lot of places. Teachers have a lot of opportunities right now. 100% of our participants came back the next year. So they felt more connected to me as a leader, more connected to each other, and they felt like they were part of something special. And then we had hard data too. So these teachers who did some self-reflection where they were maybe taking things that students did personally and escalating, and they were having interpersonal issues both with adults and students. They saw their referral rate go down by 33%. And just that's phenomenal results. And then all participants, so we had our new teachers involved, and from their first year to their second year, obviously they got more skilled, but they went through the training and their referral rate went down 30% as well. So some really great hard data too around this, to measure, are these things, these little mini lessons, all this effort that we're putting into our building our culture actually working. Again, leadership segment and teachers. So anytime our teachers or our leaders are getting together, we have a segment that just says leader. It's just labeled leadership. And that's where we know somebody's going to come in the room, deliver a mini lesson. And it's based on feedback from our staff and our department chairs on what our teachers need. Um, and we're just going to deliver the 10-minute mini lesson, and then the meeting keeps going. So it really isn't super disruptive, but it allows us to get it in front of a lot of people quite often. Another thing we found out was we were kind of shooting at a moving target. We didn't have a clear standard for how we expected people to act at work. So we created something called the standards of practice, and I'll pull this up. This is one of the best things we've done. And it really is just to create an environment where people can do their best work. And that's ultimately what it was about. And so I'll blow this up a little bit. So if you look at the image, goals, healthy work environment, we have 3 pillars: communication, professionalism, accountability, and it's on the bedrock of psychological safety. So what we really discovered is our teachers wanted to feel really, really safe in the room, raising concerns, sharing data. They wanted it to be a non-judgmental space where they could take risks. Interesting enough, like we had a presenter come in and talk about psychological safety when we found out that this was going to be a key for us. And there was a huge hospital, and they measured the effectiveness of the nursing groups. And they assumed the group that got along the best would be the highest performers, and they weren't. It was actually the group that had the most disagreements. The group that had the most disagreements were the most had the highest really outcomes for patients. And so what they learned was people just getting along isn't enough. Like they have to be able to challenge each other respectfully, and iron sharpens iron. And so when you have a lot of professionals in a room, there's a lot of expertise, and it allows the voices to be elevated. So then we said, okay, well, these words are great. What do they look like and sound like? And we put them on paper. So psychological safety, people are engaged, everybody's inclusive, we're empathetic and vulnerable in the meetings as leaders as well. We're admitting when we make mistakes. We're recognizing our own perspectives and we really want them to be challenged, actually. Everybody sees the world through a different lens. And if we don't take the time to allow other perspectives in the room, we're completely missing the boat. And then we're taking risks and modeling risk taking. We're accepting failure or setbacks as part of a learning process. Communication is really sincerity, honesty, appropriate time frame, thoughtful debate, active listening. So that's paraphrasing while people are talking. Say it like they're in the room. So if you're going to say something about somebody else, please say like they're in the room, or say it like you would say it to them, and then say what needs to be said. If we let things fester for too long, we've all been in a workplace environment where it's just like, oh, well, that's just how Jimmy is. And nobody's ever actually told Jimmy that he's making people feel a certain way. Professionalism, seek joy in the work. Everybody's entitled to have joy in the work. Continuous improvement and continuous learning is a big part of our culture. Collaborate to accomplish district goals, make decisions in the best interest of all students. We do struggle with that sometimes. Embrace measurement was a big hurdle for our staff. We had not been a staff that was results oriented for a long time. And over the last couple of years, shifting to PLCs, we have become very data driven and results oriented. So it's taken a lot of conversations. Solve problems at the lowest level. So we're not always bringing interpersonal issues to our supervisors right away. The goal would be that you and the other person would be able to have an honest conversation and work it out. Celebrating the success of others, then accountability, look beyond your defined role to add value, act honestly and ethically, do the right thing when no one's looking, and act like an owner. Treat district resources as if they were your own. So that was the standard. So this is something we show. This was just on the screen at every staff meeting. Excuse me. And then we would pick a bullet or several bullets to highlight at staff meetings or with smaller groups of staff to bring this to life. And then we even had a nomination form. So if we thought a teacher was really displaying just an unbelievable level of professionalism, another teacher could nominate them, and they would have to use the words from the standards of practice, and we would read that out loud in a staff meeting. So it really helped highlight, that this isn't just something that is pretty and hangs on the wall. This is something we want to live and we care about every day. Okay. And then, of course, it's not all kumbaya, right? So the standards of practice are not always followed. And this is another What Drives Winning tool from the book, but we almost, every administrator in our district uses this format. And then there's a huge stack of them in our HR department. Our HR director uses this format. Just had a meeting today where we had 4 people who are in a disagreement. We use this format. And so if you've ever, there's a book called Fierce Conversations. There's Fierce Conversations training. We really did a shorthand version and it's worked out really well. And then we actually use this in the meeting. So we have every meeting that there's an interpersonal or there's an issue. We just jot this out. We write it out for 5-10 minutes and then we start the meeting. And it really keeps us on track, keeps us from kind of riding that wave of emotion. So if there's an issue, you're just naming the issue. You're describing an example, and you're trying to do it with kind of void of emotion. Like, this is just what happened. And then you can say, well, how it made you feel. Try to name it. Clarify, why is this important? Were this to continue, if this were to continue and I have a hard time attending the meetings, whatever it is, what's at stake for you? And then own part of it. Hey, I understand I've been going through some things myself and I've probably had a short temper and that's on me. So that really invites vulnerability to the conversation. And then you're inviting the partner to respond. What's your point of view? Paraphrasing it. So this is really helpful with the question-based leadership. So you're going to respond back, paraphrasing what the person told you. And then you can use some of those question-based tools like, hey, can we agree that, hey, rate out if you had to rate 1 to 10 that situation, what would you rate it and why? Things like that. Resolution, what was learned? Where are we now? How can we move forward? What's our new agreements? And then hopefully you're leaving the table with some new agreements that you can hold each other accountable for. And that's really worked well. This tool has been great for us as a leadership team. Allows us to be very direct without people feeling personally attacked. So that is all I have today. I'd love to take questions. I would love to, if I could elaborate on anything or if there's a specific topic, I probably have a resource for people. So, if you have questions, type it in the chat or the Q&A. I'd love to dig deeper into those.
Awesome, Evan. Thank you so much for sharing the importance of this professional maturity with us, all the great examples and resources. Looks like Kat asked, will you be able to share the organizer with them?
Sure. Yeah. Which specific, Kat, if you could write which specific organizer, I could just share the presentation, whatever you would need, Kat. And you know what? I'm going to go to all and write my contact information for everybody as well.
Yeah, it looks like Kat was looking for the 3-pillar graphic.
Sure.
And the Fierce Conversations worksheet.
If you could email me, Kat, and then I could just reply with those attached.
I'll tell you what, I can also do, Evan, if you want to send me anything you wish to share, I will be following up with everybody tomorrow.
Okay.
And I can share out any of the materials that people wanted to have. I can just provide a link or an attachment. Links usually work better because sometimes attachments get blocked, but I can include it in my email to everybody with the recording.
Sure, no problem.
Yeah, it looks like a lot of people are interested in that standards of practice document.
Great.
Let's see if there's any other questions popping up in chat here. Looks like a lot of thank yous. Yes, and as I mentioned at the beginning, this will be recorded, and I'll be sending out a recording link and the evaluation link out to everybody who made it for the full presentation. Complete that evaluation, and you will receive the ISB evidence of completion form for entering your PD clock hours.
I know this takes a lot of time to get used to with staff, but what is a good idea of time? Barb, are you asking about implementation time or how much time on the mini lessons or what, how long did it take to develop the standards of practice? Kind of what are you referring to? Implementation time. Yeah. In terms of the standards of practice, that took, I would say about 6 months, and that was started with a staff survey, and it kind of filtered through our leadership team, and then we presented one draft to staff, and then revised and settled it on a final draft. In terms of the mini lessons, those honestly, it's not, you just dive right in. Like what's the issue you're trying to solve, and what would be an interesting way you could try to teach it in 10 minutes and just start getting in front of people. I think sometimes we wait and we really don't need to. We kind of just need to have the conversation. So and then you just build, well, the cool thing about once you start, you're just going to build your library. So I started with like 3 ideas, and then all of a sudden I had like 20, and then all the assistant principals had a couple that they started liking too. And all of a sudden, we had a pretty good bank of materials to kind of facilitate those growth meetings, leadership meetings.
Wonderful. Thanks for that explanation, Evan. Kat, Henry, you have your hand raised. Would you like me to enable your microphone, or was that just to ask a question in chat? If you can type into the chat, let me know. I can also. Oh, okay, Kat, we got it answered. Great. Just want to make sure if there was somebody who wanted to speak on the mic, all you have to do is raise your hand, and I can enable the microphone for you. Otherwise, feel free to type your question into chat.
One thing I will add, just kind of as things are trickling in here, is we have something called an academy, and it's an academy format. And what we do is we have in-house professional development, and we award shifts in the pay scale for attending. So we get great attendance at our professional development sessions in-house, and a lot of them are around personal growth. And if every 15 hours that a teacher logs with us in professional development after school, they get 2 hours of graduate credit that slides them across the pay scale. So if you can implement something at your school, you can really get in a lot of professional development, and it'll be professional development that you want your teachers to have. So I highly recommend that as well.
Evan, did you see Raquel's comment? I
Yeah.
love who you are and what you do activity.
Yeah, it's a game changer for a lot of people, especially our younger staff. They really, really are attached to their results in their evaluation. And if they don't see a 4, it's as if they're just completely broken. And you just want to tell them, it's okay. Nobody's gonna be perfect every time. So it's just feedback on a lesson, and don't take it for more than that, but let's get it fixed and let's do better. So it's been fantastic. So thank you. Great one to start with too, if you're just looking for somewhere to start here. Easy one to start with.
Okay, I don't see any other questions popping in the chat. Oh, I've got one in Q&A. Okay, Sarah asked, she said she arrived late. Is there a copy of the handout? Sarah, we will be sending those to you tomorrow with the recording. And speaking of the recording, I want to bring that to a stop right now.